So I titled this, What Does That Awareness Mean to You? Because honestly, it can mean something different to everyone. It can mean for a parent that your child is a spontaneous mutation. It can mean, your kid is sick and you can't do anything about it, right? So awareness in general, the main beneficial factor is saving lives. Okay, so if you don't know you have it and you go to the ER and you think you're having a heart attack and they don't think you are based on your cardiac enzymes and things like that, they're going to send you home, right? Well, if you're Marfan and you happen to be dissecting, you need a CT to see that, right? A chest x-ray isn't going to see that. So you need to have a CT. Well, if you don't know that you have Marfan's, you're not going to know to ask. And the doctors certainly aren't going to know that they should be doing it before they let you out, right? And that's where this handy-dandy emergency card comes in. The foundation sends them out, and I believe they're also on the website, if I'm not mistaken. But, you can put your emergency information here. And then back here it tells you, we're 250 times more likely to dissect than the normal public. That alone says a lot, right? I mean, dissection isn't common. So when you say that we're that much more likely to get it, that's a big, bold statement, right? So this is basically saying, well, I think it actually says in perfect detail, do not send this person home until the possibility of aortic dissection is ruled out. Okay? So if you have this, and I'll just use myself as an example, probably 4 different times I've went to the ER thinking that I was dissecting. Once it actually ended up being bronchitis and costochondritis. So it was inflammation of the lining there between your ribs, and you really have no idea of knowing that it's that, until you get an x-ray. So it's extremely painful, and even when they find out that it's that, it's not like, oh, okay, cool, it went away. No. So I ended up having that, so big relief, had my CT, no dissection, hallelujah. And then back in 2016, I went 3 different times in a row, and each time they kept sending me home with heartburn. Well, the 3rd time, I thought, you know what, this is not working. They've given me medicine, they've given me GI cocktails, they've done this, they've done that, I've seen my gastro. This is obviously something more, right? So I stood up for myself, which I'm hoping all of you do, and I advocated for myself because no one advocates for you, and I pushed for a CT and an ultrasound. So the ultrasound actually showed up that I was full of gallstones and my gallbladder was a mess. So thank God I still wasn't dissecting, but they were sending me home with heartburn medicine. Did I have heartburn? Probably. But was that my only thing? No. So I ended up getting my gallbladder taken out, right? But if I had been dissecting and I just walked in there and said, okay, I'm a 31-year-old female. Looking at me, I look to be in pretty good health. They would say, yeah, you're not having a heart attack. Or, yeah, you're not dissecting. But that's where advocacy comes in, because you have to take with you information to back up your findings. Now, that's not so much needed for the people that are really tall and skinny and easily spotted. I'm not. I'm 5'6", I believe, and I'm not skinny. Never really have been. Most of my factors are internal. So, if you don't know that you have it, you can't tell them that you have it, which could lead to death. Very possibly. If you dissect and they don't even know that you're dissecting, they can't fix it, right? So isn't it better to know? Now, I do know some people that they would rather not know, whether it comes to this or cancer or whatever. But the problem is, I've even had people tell me, why does it matter if you have that diagnosis or not? You either have it or you don't, right? Well, that's not true. That might be true for plantar fasciitis. You either have it or you don't, right? Not for Marfan's. Because let's go the insurance route even. If you go and try to get an echo every year when you're not a Marfan patient and you don't have an established cardiac history, insurance is going to be like, I'm not paying for that. You don't need that. Okay? If you have that diagnosis, you get it. And that echo, that transesophageal echo, that CT, can save your life. Okay? I've heard way too many stories, and I know there's a couple people even in this group who've gotten their first CT, and they needed surgery right away. So what would happen if they hadn't have had that CT? Do you need me to tell you? Because it's death. Okay? And that's blunt, and if you followed me for any amount of time, you know that I like to practice tough love. So, I'm going to tell you how it is. I'm going to be truthful. And if you don't know, you could die. Simple as that, right? So, for me, my first marker was my eyes. I was born with dislocated lenses to the point where the bottom of my lens was sitting in the center of my pupil, right? So, I was 4 when I had those taken out. So, basically, by the time I started walking until 4, I was running into walls and, sitting real close to the TV and all the stuff that, she's just clumsy or she just wants to sit close to the TV. They didn't know that, especially back in 1990, right? Put on my aunt's glasses one day and I said, oh my gosh, I can see. Well, there started the snowball. I will go into my whole story on a different post just because it takes a little bit longer and I don't want to ramble too much on this first one because I have a tendency to do so. But anyways, that's when they mentioned Marfan's to my mom. Now, I didn't really have any other symptoms, large noticeable symptoms, let's say, for probably 1990. When we first found it, it was just eyes all the way until probably 2013. Okay? So, to me, I'm thinking, okay, well, dislocated lenses, that's rare, but I don't have any of these other things. So, I kind of just put it out of my mind, right? I happened to get an echo because I thought, okay, I have some weird things that just don't add up. I've had migraines since I was born, asthma for no reason. My joints pop, crack, hurt, dislocate. Things that just aren't normal, right? I had hip pain and popping out of place. I was at least 10. It could have been even earlier before I started really noticing it. So what 10-year-old has their hip popping in and out of place and can't run because of that and asthma, or with the lens problems, I can't run because I can't focus on anything. That's not normal, right? Especially not to have all of these factors all in the same kid. Okay? So again, I thought, okay, this is weird, but then in 2013, when more things started happening, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do some digging because, yeah, my mom did a lot of digging in 1990, but there was only so much digging to be done. Okay? So now, going back a few years, I just started eating, living, and breathing Marfan research, okay? And I'm in West Virginia, if you haven't noticed by the title of the group. So when I went to my doctor, well, several different doctors actually, the thing was always, you're not tall and skinny. I know. So I got told no, I don't know even how many times. And even after I have an official diagnosis. Now, in 1990, I was at Duke with the leading people and they're the ones that said I had it. But we didn't think of it as official because it wasn't, I guess, down on paper, right? So, anyways, the diagnosis can save your life. I don't remember where I was going with that last story, but it can save your life. It can save the life of a family member or a friend. And even if you don't even take it to the extreme of saving your life, it can save your vision. Because if you go to the eye doctor, your lenses are held in place by something called zonules, which is like a almost like a ligament in your eye connecting to the ciliary body. So that's holding it in place. So if those are just a little bit loose, the typical eye doctor, if he doesn't know to look, okay, her zonules are just a little bit loose. Big deal. Big whoop. Well, for us, if they're already loose, that's something that they really, really need to monitor, because at any time, they could just snap and there you go. You know, your lens could dislocate up, down, side to side, back. And you go to, well, I'm assuming it's like that for everybody. When I didn't have lenses in, I was not completely blind. I saw color and light, and that was all. Like, I couldn't even tell who you were if you're right here. So, you know, you're not going to be looking for that if you don't have a diagnosis. Same way with retinal detachment. It's not super duper common in the regular public. Aortic size. How many regular people do you know that goes and gets an echo every year? I don't know of anybody. You know, they either have a cardiac problem or they have Marfan's. So some people, I guess they could have, you know, a double bypass, and then the next echo they're like, oh, okay, why is this? And then they find it that way. But that probably is not the most common route. So that diagnosis can make you get the echoes, that can make you get the CTs, that can make you have the proper information to take with you to schools, to hospitals, to doctor's offices. That diagnosis is clutch, okay? You can get that with genetic testing. You can get that with having special markers. Like if you have, I'm not completely positive, so don't quote me on this, but if you have dislocated lenses and cardiac, those are both the cardinal features. So it's almost guaranteed you have Marfan's, right? Family history also plays a big part if you don't have both of those. And, you know, I'm going to go into more of all this, like the Z-score and things like that later. But I'm trying to emphasize to you the importance of a diagnosis. Do not let a doctor tell you you don't have that and just say, okay, cool, just send me home. No, you could die. Do you hear me? You could die. So if you have to act like a bitch, do it, because you're the only person that can advocate for you. Doctors, you know, a lot of them are still really ignorant about the subject, and ignorant isn't even a bad word. It just means that you're lacking information. Problem is that a lot of them don't care to get that information, which is dangerous. So the more educated you are and the more aware you are, the better off you're going to be, because you can tell that doctor, hey, you missed this, 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 and this. Or if he wants to put you on a beta blocker, well, yeah, beta blockers have been the standard to control the growth, but now losartan is showing excellent results, and that isn't a beta blocker, it's an ARB. So do you think the cardiologist in West Virginia is going to know that? No, I had to tell him. And I mean, I'm used to that. I know that if you don't know, you're probably not going to look it up for one patient. As sad as that is, you should, but you probably won't. So you need to start doing your research. And if you want me to provide the research, I'll be more than happy. But, I mean, a diagnosis, I can say it till I'm blue in the face. It is very, very important. If you believe, and I have a stubborn family, right? So even as much as I can tell them all of these facts, sometimes they still don't believe me, and they say, kind of like giving somebody a cancer diagnosis, I don't have that. Well, I mean, you can deny it all you want to, but you could die. Now, not everybody has heart issues. So that could be very dramatic for no reason, but I would rather be dramatic and keep you alive than saying, you probably don't. You have 15 features, but I think you're good. No. Again, I do tough love. Get tested. If you don't want to do genetic testing, get all of your resources in order and get them to do the clinical. I mean, and I know that there's a lot more information on both of those. I've not yet made it to an annual conference, so I can't give you as much information as I would like to, but I know there's people in here that can, if they would like to chime in at any time. So, what does Marfan's mean to me? Marfan awareness. To me, if I hadn't told my doctor that I had Marfan's and that I needed an echo, he wouldn't have done one. Well, my aorta in a matter of a year went from 2.5 to 3.7. Now, 3.7 is the upper end of normal. So if a normal person came in and it was 3.7, okay, well, that's no big deal, right? But when you jump that high in a year and you have tissue disorders, that's a big problem. So he would have just said, okay, you're good, go ahead, go home. No. I mean, he still wanted to do that, but I'm not that person. I like to make sure that I'm getting the proper care that I'm there for, and I do have a medical background, so I'm a lot more adamant about it than a lot of people. So, what does it mean to you? Does it mean that you've saved somebody already? That you've had your life saved? That your kid doesn't have to run into walls? What's it mean to you? You know, and I guess I probably should have started with the fact, if people in here do not know exactly what Marfan Syndrome is, it's a connective tissue disorder. And the way I like to explain it, because most of the general public that you run into have no idea what it is. So the way I like to explain it is the tissues in your body, the normal person's body, they bind your organs and your bones and all of this together. And it stabilizes it like glue. Well, ours is more like goop. So our body just kind of does whatever it feels like. And that's been the most effective way for me to explain it to people. And everybody has their own way. If you're talking to somebody that has a medical background, you can say, okay, you know what? And they're going to know exactly what you mean. But for the general public, they don't. So simplify it. I put a quote on the page the other day. If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. And I think that was by Albert Einstein. So do your research. Get the awareness out there. Teach people. You don't have to be a teacher. You don't have to work in a school to teach people. Okay? It's just very, very important. So, tell me what it means to you. I would absolutely love to know.